We all have unexamined beliefs. They're not just floating around in our heads doing nothing. They shape our actual lives. That's the whole point of the Thomas theorem. Brooke Castillo defines a belief as simply a thought you've had so many times that you now believe it's true. I'd add that beliefs can also be inherited. Things like you're nothing without a college education or rich people are assholes. When you learn to define this situation like saying no is loving or I'm allowed to rest, your beliefs shift. And when your beliefs shift, your behavior shifts. Hi, I'm Barb Nangle. I want to welcome you to my podcast, Fragmented to Whole, Life Lessons from 12-Step Recovery. If you're tired of feeling fragmented and overwhelmed, this podcast is your guide to creating a life of wholeness, authenticity, and healthy boundaries. I'm a woman in recovery who is also a boundaries coach and speaker. I share raw and honest insights from my own journey and the principles of 12-step recovery. Discover how to set boundaries without guilt or shame, overcome people-pleasing tendencies, manage your emotions effectively, cultivate a stronger sense of self, and build healthier relationships. My approach is raw, honest, and sometimes a lot sweary. I'm an avid beachcomber and a formerly closeted fan of the Hallmark Channel, especially Christmas movies. I wear fingerless gloves almost all year round because my hands are always cold, and I love taking pictures of license plates with my initials BN on them. I don't speak for or endorse any particular 12-step program of recovery. Though I'm a huge fan of 12-step recovery and a member of 2 such fellowships, I cannot speak for them. If you're ready for real talk and practical tools for transformation, keep listening. This is episode 319, Why Mindset Matters More Than You Think, Boundaries, Recovery, and Belief. As you may or may not know, I'm a sociologist by training. I have both a bachelor's and a master's degree in sociology. And during my schooling, I learned something that we would casually call definition of the situation, but the technical name is the Thomas theorem. And here's what it says. Situations that we define as real are real in their consequences. Now, what does this mean? It means if you believe there are monsters under your bed, it kind of doesn't matter whether there are monsters or not, because that belief will shape your behavior. You're going to feel fear getting into bed, and you're not going to want to step too close to the bed, and you might even leap onto it. Even if it's not objectively true, your belief creates real consequences for you. And that's what I want to talk about today, because this has everything to do with recovery, boundary setting, behavior change, and frankly, a well-lived life. What you think in your head fucking matters. Now, quick update before we go deeper. You may have noticed that I'm only doing 2 episodes a month for now. I'm also cutting back on my newsletter to just 2 editions a month, probably through the summer. The reason? I have so much content sitting on my computer that's not helping anyone. For years, I've wanted to curate it into specific bundles to sell to help people with targeted issues, and I'm finally doing that. I'm also going through a whole rebrand and refocusing. If you haven't been to my website in a while, go check it out. There's all kinds of cool shit on there now. There's a menu called My Issue Is, where you can pick personal boundaries, family boundaries, romantic boundaries, or workplace boundaries. Each page has both free and paid materials to help you with that specific type of boundary. Now, as of this recording, the only bundle that's ready for sale is the Romantic Boundaries bundle, but many more are coming. I've also done a talk recently for the Connecticut Bar Association that lawyers found super helpful, and I've been on a few law podcasts recently, and it's really clear that profession is in serious need of support, as are many others. So I'm building a course for lawyers, and I'll be doing versions for entrepreneurs, business owners, professional women, etc. in the future. Now, if any of this speaks to you, go to higherpowercc.com and check it out. I would love to hear what you think. All right, back to today's topic. What we believe is real becomes real in its consequences. Now, if you're not familiar with David Bayer, Bayer, he has both a podcast and a book called A Changed Mind. I put links in the show notes for those. I cannot tell you how much his work has helped me. I've been doing mindset work for a long time, and to me, his shit is the tightest stuff out there. I highly recommend it. I listened to every episode of his podcast, some of them more than once, and I thought, I probably don't need the book. But then I got a credit on Audible, and I figured, why not? And I ended up listening to it 3 times in a row. Then I did one of his $97 weekend programs thinking, I doubt I'll get anything new from this, but I did. And I signed up for his coaching program. His stuff is so good. What I think he's uniquely gifted at is helping you identify what your limiting beliefs are and then helping you debunk them. So I'm going to walk through that process in a bit. But first, let's go back to why this matters. We all have unexamined beliefs. They're not just floating around in our heads doing nothing. They shape our actual lives. That's the whole point of the Thomas theorem. Brooke Castillo defines a belief as simply a thought you've had so many times that you now believe it's true. I'd add that beliefs can also be inherited. Things like you're nothing without a college education or rich people are assholes. When you learn to define the situation like saying no is loving or I'm allowed to rest, your beliefs shift. And when your beliefs shift, your behavior shifts. Let's get concrete with a few examples of how this shows up in boundary work and recovery. So if the belief is, if I say no, people will leave me, the consequence is you avoid saying no, become an overgiver, and sacrifice your needs to avoid abandonment, even if no one has actually threatened to leave. And the sad thing is you end up abandoning yourself. I always say, when you abandon yourself in any kind of relationship, you've built abandonment into the relationship because you're not really there. The real you isn't there. All right, next belief. It's selfish to put myself first. The consequence is you neglect your well-being, get exhausted, and maybe even feel shame for prioritizing rest or self-care. You define self-prioritization as, quote, bad, so the result is guilt, self-neglect, and disconnection. All right, next belief. If I don't fix this for them, I'm a bad friend or partner. The consequence is that you insert yourself in other people's problems, give unsolicited advice, and take on emotional labor that isn't yours. You get enmeshed, you blur boundaries, you don't give people the chance to rescue themselves. And they may or may not, maybe they will go on to rescue themselves, or maybe they'll find someone else, but that's not your business. That's theirs. All right, next belief. No one ever listens to me anyway. So the consequence is you stop speaking up, assume you're invisible or unimportant, and don't advocate for yourself. This reinforces your belief. Even if others would listen, they never get the chance because you've gone silent. Then the next belief, I'm too broken to change. This is so common in recovery. The terms we use are I'm terminally unique or I'm uniquely flawed. This is victim mentality. And the consequence is you don't take action to grow or heal. You self-sabotage. You stay stuck. You dismiss signs of progress and don't see the choices you do have. And the result is that it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So what can you do? Let's say you have a business and it's not at the level you want. I'm using this example because this is the type of example that David uses, and it's a pretty easy one. Even if you don't have a business, you can follow it. Ask yourself, what reasons am I telling myself for why it isn't working? So maybe it's there are too many people in my field, or I don't have the right messaging. Those, quote, reasons are your limiting beliefs. So let's use a personal trainer as an example. Maybe they believe the market is saturated. That's a belief. And yeah, there are a lot of trainers, but there are also trainers making tons of money because they know how to run a business. So here's the process David Bayer teaches. 1, identify the limiting belief, which you've done above. 2, write out some statements that express the opposite, your antidote to belief. For example, maybe there's plenty of business for everyone, or the market has space for me, or I attract clients who need what I uniquely offer. And then you choose the one that resonates with you. So here's where the work comes in. You start looking for evidence that this new belief is true. Why? Because your brain wants evidence. And when you give it evidence, it starts to rewire. You create new neural pathways for the new belief. And when you stop going into the old belief, you sort of like pave over those old neural pathways. So look for that evidence in your own life or in others. Write it down and review it daily. Train your brain to find proof. This taps into what's called the reticular activating system, or RAS. This is the part of your brain that filters in what's relevant and filters out what's not. If you've ever bought a new car and suddenly seen that car everywhere, that is your RAS in action. There aren't actually more of that car on the road. It's just that the car is now relevant to you, so your brain starts noticing. That's what's going on when we feed our brain new beliefs and train it to look for new evidence. Your brain cannot absorb all of the stimuli out there. So the reticular activating system only filters in what's relevant and filters out what it determines is irrelevant. So what you're saying is, this has become relevant. I want you to filter it in. So if I believe the market is saturated, then I'm going to see evidence for that everywhere. That's not just bad luck. That's confirmation bias. In research, we call this tendency to seek out and notice only what confirms your existing belief confirmation bias. It's the brain's way of going, see, I told you I was right, while conveniently ignoring all the evidence that might challenge that belief. That's why double-blind studies are so important in experimentation. So neither the experimenter nor the subject knows who's getting the real treatment and who's getting the placebo. Because when people know, their beliefs can unconsciously influence the outcome. That is how powerful belief is. And the same thing happens in your everyday life. If you believe you're not good enough, or that clients don't want what you offer, you'll filter the world through that lens and only notice the stuff that reinforces it. That's exactly why doing this mindset work, training your brain to seek different evidence, is so powerful. You're basically rewiring how your brain sees the world. So what's going on in your mind has everything to do with the life you're living. May you take what you've learned here and turn it into a powerful living experience. Hey there. If you've been listening to this podcast and thinking, wow, I really need boundaries, then I want to personally invite you into my coaching program, Unshakable You. The Fragmented to Whole method is designed for people like you, smart, capable women who are tired of overgiving, saying yes when they mean no, and constantly putting yourself last. Inside Unshakable You, I walk you step by step through the exact process I used to stop people-pleasing, reclaim my time and energy, and finally build healthy relationships. Because once you have healthy boundaries, real connection becomes possible. If you're ready to become the calm, confident version of yourself that you know is in there, head to higherpowercc.com/unshakable to learn more. You can build rock solid boundaries and thrive in your relationships. I'll show you how. higherpowercc.com/unshakable. If you like this podcast, and I'm guessing you did because you're still listening, you will also love my weekly newsletter, Friday Fragments, which has short essays similar to the podcast. You can check it out at fridayfragments.news. That's fridayfragments.news. If you haven't already subscribed to my podcast on your favorite podcast outlet, please do that. It helps carry the message to more people. I started this podcast because there was so much wisdom in recovery that just wasn't making its way out into the world. so I want as many people as possible to hear it. I'd also love it if you'd leave a 5-star rating or a review, which you can do on Apple Podcasts. It helps other people find it so they can get the benefits that you've gotten from listening. If someone in particular came to mind when you listen to this episode, please share it with them. And my favorite place to hang out on social media is Instagram. I'm at Higher Power Coaching. Please DM me there. I'd love to hear what you got from this episode. I run private and group coaching programs on building healthy boundaries. Whether you need help with boundaries in your personal, professional, or romantic life, I can help. Head on over to barbchat.net where you can get on my calendar for a free 30-minute Better Boundaries consultation. I also do short-term situational coaching to help people make it through specific situations they're going through, such as divorce, empty nesting, preparing for retirement, or any phase where their identity is shifting. Regardless of the type of coaching, my ideal client is someone who is ripe for change. If that's you, I'd love to work with you. My goal with all my work is to help you make lasting changes in your life, like I've made deep, lasting changes in my life. Remember, it's never too late to recover. No one is beyond hope, and healing is possible. Thanks for listening.